Grateful for your time there. Daily Guide starts this morning and says 15 customs officers fired over corruption. Comes with a photograph of the customs commissioner. And then Akosa is not a chief, says Queen Mother. My story. And then UN applauds Ghana's single window. These are stories on the Daily Guide. The Punch says Snitch software saga. Flagstaff House fishes for evidence against former DG. And just more hot over alleged forgery. The Business Day, textile workers to be laid off, Union storms Trade Ministry next week, and then multi-million City Ghana Airways building rots. Aviation Ministry Airport Company deny ownership. And the BNFT says loot and share rocks Venture Capital Trust Fund. BNI chases former boss Mr. Duku over 40 million cedi. Heritage has this story, shocking. Registrar General's Department says MDEX Company Limited not registered and paralyzed victim petitions AGP and AG for justice. Ghana's debt hits 129.5 billion. That's from the Bank of Ghana. The Statesman says government plans alternative livelihood for Galamsey's. President Akufo-Addo is said to have said that. And then NPA fights illegal sale of fuel. Licenses of offenders to be withdrawn. That is the story. The Finder says add value to secure future. President Akufo-Addo on raw materials export. The story here carries the same story. Public debt hitting 127.1 billion cedis. My guest this morning to do the talking to my extreme left is a member of parliament for the Futu constituency, a member of the NPP, Honorable Alexander Afenyamaki. Good morning.
Morning.
And thanks so much for your Monday morning.
Thank you for having me here.
All right. And then to my left, former Deputy Minister of Information, a member of the NDC, Felix Kwachi. Good morning, too.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing good.
Yes.
You've been away for some time.
Yes, I took a short break after the elections. Yeah.
Great for your time. Now, let's begin with this story. We're told by the Finder that our public debt is about 127.1 billion cedis. The Finder is carrying the story. That same story is also captured by the Heritage. A quick look at the story itself on page 4. Now, it says that a summary of economic and financial data from the Bank of Ghana has revealed that Ghana's total public debt has increased to 127.1 billion cedis. That's 29.4 billion as at the end of the first quarter of 2017. This is 62.5% of projected 203.4 billion gross domestic product for 2017. Now, we're told that the increase in the public debt stock was the result of deficit financing, payment of inherited arrears and debts. Government, we're told, borrowed more than 4.5 billion Ghana cedis in the first quarter of 2017, but the debt stock did not go up to equal the amount borrowed because part of the money borrowed was used to pay off part of the country's debt. So that's the story so far. 27.3 million Ghana cedis as interest, cost, and deficit financing for 2017. The figures just too many here, but that's the story so far. We're told we are incurring more. Alex, let's begin from here. The public debt rising, how should we take it? That we need the money to perhaps run our development, or we should stay on this issue of trying hard to look at the way we borrow?
Well, a mix of the two. It is not a bad idea to take a loan if it is for the purpose of developing the country.
Right.
But it becomes a bad idea when you borrow and there isn't any commensurate development to actually justify. Economists will say that when you borrow fund monies and you don't invest them properly and it all goes into consumption, then obviously you find yourself in a big trouble. You are aware that for the past 8 years, our friends in the NDC who were in government kept justifying that they needed to borrow to ensure development. And we in opposition had also told them that, look, most of the funds that you were borrowing, it isn't that you are really using them for development. Some of the projects, it's either overpriced, or that you were paying so much on interest. I would not belabor, but there are just two examples I always want to deal with, like the Chinese loan, that the CDB, you're going to borrow money from the Chinese. The conditions, the cost of the loan was such that without, just for penalties alone, Ghana government was losing over 800 million Ghana cedis. 800 million Ghana cedis because you could not meet disbursement requirement. They went to take money for SADA. Just 3 years alone, interest was 99 million. You borrow 200 million, interest 99 million. So in 36 months, government of Ghana had to cough 299 million. There's Kaswa interchange. Yes, we need the interchange, but the cost of that borrowing, I seconded that the motion on the floor. But the cost of it was just too high. Look, we were borrowing 160 million. We were supposed to put some money in collection account, do 20% of it in a collection account. They were charging us commercial rates. At the same time, we were supposed to pay the insurance premium for the facility, 10%. If you put all these together, the concerns were, look, it's not a matter of don't borrow, but look at the cost. There are many more others. Because I don't have the figures here, I wouldn't want to go into speculation. But there were many more loans that, in our view, if our friends had properly negotiated, would have had value for money. So the rising debt is as a result of some reckless borrowing in the past.
It is not because we need the money.
No, that's not the point. We need money. Even mighty United States needs money. All right? We need the money. But to what effect do you sort of achieve by getting the money? If you are a businessman, you need about $1 million for importation of trucks. And then you go and ask for $1 million, and the charges alone, it will be said that in 2 years you would have to pay almost $2 million. You are not supposed to go for that loan. You're supposed to negotiate. Look out for a cheaper source of borrowing. Okay. Another example, on the issuance of bonds, the government at a point decided to go into the market, get raise additional funds. If you look at the costs, at the time we issued our Eurobond, second one, Côte d'Ivoire was also doing the same thing. Côte d'Ivoire had it far, far lesser than us, whereas we were getting it at 10.23. Côte d'Ivoire around the same time was getting far lesser than us. All right? So there was really a problem with the cost of borrowing. There was really a problem with the approach. There was really a problem with the way investors looked at our environment here. That, well, is it a high risk? Is the economy being run properly? Because all these things add up to give confidence. In any event, to conclude on this, in any event, government itself, domestic market, government itself was borrowing from you and I through Treasury bill. At what rate? Treasury bill rate went up as high as 25%.
Let me ask you this before I go to
25%.
I go to Felix. In the build-up to the 2016 elections, I think the argument was that we need to bring our public debt down. Now, some 5 months into the year, we're told the debt is not going down. Should we be worried?
Well, I am not too much into public debt going down or staying where it is. I am interested in what we use those monies for. How we assist the private sector. I'm a private sector person. All these interventions that the government is talking about, I want to see the reality that, look, businessmen are comfortable, businessmen are getting their businesses done, the private sector is getting lower interest rates in terms of borrowing. Because if interest rates are high, if cost of getting the money is high, then it's a problem for the private sector.
Okay.
So, and government, you see, government would borrow to also feed the private sector. You borrow for projects, don't you? Government will borrow for projects. So if government borrows for projects and at the end of the day, it is expensive for the private sector, then there's a problem. But I'm very positive that with all the measures in place, Ghanaian businessmen are going to feel it.
What government is doing. Certainly. I'm grateful. Felix, so the argument by Alex is that it is not so much how much we have taken, but what we're using what we've taken for. So we should not be worried about.
Well, Alex's struggle this morning has been to reconcile.
Is he struggling?
Well, I'll come to why I say he's struggling. See, he has struggled to reconcile their dubious narrative in opposition, where every time that the national debt came up, they engaged in outright untruths, deliberate partisan propaganda, and sought to mislead the public about, first of all, the need for borrowing and the use to which monies that are so borrowed are put. Now, he struggled to reconcile this with the current reality that they find themselves in. Why? Go back to the State of the Nation address delivered by President Akufo-Addo, and you would appreciate the relish with which he spoke about the debt. He said we owed 122 billion Ghana cedis. He repeated, and I regret to have to use this word, the falsehood about how much of the debt was even borrowed in the last 8 years. They manipulate figures and arrive at a very false conclusion that about 90% of all our national debt was incurred by the NDC. It is completely false. Indeed, a day after he delivered the State of the Nation address, the minority also put out its own assessment of the state and corrected that misleading narrative about our debt. They broke it down in terms of the quantums and showed that the claim that 90% of the debt was borrowed by the NDC is completely incorrect. And it is falsehood that the MPP engaged in opposition. We had expected that they would leave it behind once they come into government. But you see, Bright, our current debt is what? 129 billion Ghana cedis. That means that it has risen by a whopping 7 billion Ghana cedis in the first quarter. That is the first 3 months of this year. And we are in the 5th month. In the last 2 months, I'm sure some borrowing would have gone on, either externally or domestically, and eventually to be added onto the debt stock. Again, they say that our debt to GDP ratio is 62%. You see, that is again very misleading. They are pitching the total debt we have against what they call projected GDP. What is projected GDP? Our GDP at every particular point ought to be known. So if they are unsure of what our GDP is currently, they ought to be relying on the latest figures provided by the Ghana Statistical Service, which is what they would have given after the end of the fiscal year 2016. So the debt to GDP ratio figures are completely misleading.
The 62 is
it is intended.
It's more or less.
It is intended. It is intended to create the impression of a lesser problem than we already have. Let them be categoric and state what our GDP is. It is unacceptable that a country like ours would not know what our GDP is and we rely on what they call projected figures. Projections means that by the end of 2017, that's the size of the economy that we expect to see. That cannot be used for any meaningful analysis. So let them correct that. Again, if you look at the factors that they are blaming this ballooning debt on, they say
financing.
But which government has not financed deficits under the Fourth Republic? Not a single government in our history has inherited a surplus. So debt has always been incurred to finance deficits. So they have said nothing profound. Payment of inherited arrears. Which government in our history has not inherited arrears? When we came to power in 2009, we were inundated with demands from contractors who had not been paid. So it is a long-standing difficulty. Therefore, these are not new problems that warrant any extraordinary borrowing beyond what we have been doing regularly. It is just the case that they have been hit with reality, and they have found that the untruths that they told in opposition will not work once they come into government. Look, every country in this world borrows. Even almighty USA borrow. They are supposed to have the largest economy in the world, which runs into tens of trillions of dollars. But they still borrow. There are very few countries that have surpluses. About 2-3 months ago, Saudi Arabia raised bonds to the tune of $17 billion. That is the world's leading producer of oil.
That is not better what they use the money for?
I'll come to that argument. I'll come to that argument. Okay. First of all, the MPP created the impression that we had all the money we needed in this country and we didn't need to borrow. I can quote their leaders First, it was President Akufo-Addo who said that we have not been put on this earth in this particular country to be poor, and that we have all the money here. All we need to do is to tap it. Then Dr. Bawumia, in multiple lectures, created the impression that the MPP was opposed to borrowing, that borrowing was anathema, and derided the NDC government for borrowing. They created that impression. Of course, we knew that they were not telling the truth. We knew that they were simply playing to the gallery. Every country requires some amount of borrowing to be able to keep its books balanced. Because what are the sources of revenue for our country? We have taxes. We have monies that we get from selling natural resources, gold, timber, oil, and what have you. And then we borrow. There are also sometimes grants that we get from our development partners. But in the last few years, that has dwindled considerably because those development partners themselves are having difficulties. And they will face the same problem. They will promise you at the beginning of the year that you will get this number or this amount of money. But you will find that by the end of the year, that money will not have come for various reasons. So you are left with no option than to borrow. We are a developing country. The impression they created that we were self-sufficient was completely misleading. It was simply to play on the sensibilities of the electorate in order to deceive them into voting for them. Again, this argument about what you use the money for, that is where they told yet more falsehoods. Only last week, they formally opened the Raid Hospital to the members of the public. Only last week. In the minister's speech, there was no mention of the so-called bloating or inflation of the cost of that project. You recall how then candidate Akufo-Addo, during his so-called True State Orientation address, claimed categorically that we had inflated that building by $142 million, only for Mr. Kweku Bako, his own friend, to come and say that that claim is not true. They did the same thing for the Kaswa interchange. Without basis, they claimed that it had been inflated. That project is ongoing. They've been in government for 6 months. If it was inflated, where is the proof? Why have they not brought it forth for Ghanaians to see that there's any inflation? All of that was partisan propaganda, falsehood, deliberately couched to undermine the NDC government. Let Alex, my friend here, tell the people of Ghana in black and white, in plain language, what they have used the 7 billion they've borrowed so far for.
I'll ask him. I'll put that question to him.
Let him tell us what they've used the money for. You see, it is not a simple A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3 arithmetic that we are doing here. What happens is that some of the loans are project specific. For instance, you want to do the Eastern Corridor route. So you scout around and find, say, $200 million to do it. When the money comes, it is tied to a specific project. So there's no room for diverting the funds to do anything else. Then sometimes you borrow domestically in order to meet recurrent expenditure because there have been significant shortfalls in revenue. I'm sure that since they've been in government, they've actually borrowed to pay salaries. They've borrowed to pay salaries. I'm sure if you go into the books, you will find that. It doesn't mean that they are reckless. But it is a condition imposed on you because of shortfalls in revenue.
What you're saying is not to say that some loans taken were not wrongly used.
But the point is that, you see, you don't engage in that narrative whimsically.
Okay.
You don't do it with a view to undermining your opponent when you don't have the facts to back it. I gave you the example of the Raid Hospital. Where is the proof of the inflation of the Raid Hospital project? They've been in government. Let them bring it forth. Despite the fact that Crown agents carried out the evaluation, submitted the report to Parliament upon which it was approved, they consistently drummed home this falsehood that that project had been inflated. They did it for partisan benefit. Today they are in government and they are borrowing. I would have thought that Nana Addo will use his pocket money, since we have all the money we need in Ghana to develop this country. I am not opposed to borrowing. Unlike them who choose to do very responsible politics, I don't believe in that kind of politics. The point is that there's a way of accounting for all of this. Why? Recently, they've gone to borrow, what, 2.25 billion through bonds. Something that should have been done over a 3-day period was done in 6 hours. It lacked transparency. Issues have been raised about conflict of interest. And he speaks about steep interest rates that we have to pay. Are you aware that in 15 years, we will pay a total of 6 billion cedis to Franklin Templeton and the others who bought the bonds? $6 billion. In Ghana cedi terms, that is almost 30 billion Ghana cedis. Because every year, they will get a cool $400 million in interest. Look at the interest rate, 19.5%. And he's talking about high interest rates. The bond that we raised, the last one, was 10.25%.
But they are
interest rates. Yeah, they are different arrangements. But the point is that when they come to this debate, they do so in a simplistic fashion. rather than delineating the issues and letting people appreciate where we are, they think that they must run with everything to score political points.
I see.
Let Alex tell you what they've done with 7 billion Ghana cedis that they borrowed in the last 3 months alone.
Alex, in the build-up to the elections, Felix is saying that your leaders suggested that we have all we need in Ghana and that borrowing should be an option. And yet, we have so far accumulated about 7 billion. Can we justify that?
Maybe this morning, I may have to go back to what Olarotimi said. And gods are not to blame. That no amount of rainfall can wash off the spoils of a leopard. Obviously, Felix in his approach, the normal approach in political communication cannot change, whether in government or in opposition. He would want to mix the facts and miss, the essence of his submissions and mislead people. Let's deal with the facts. He tells the whole world this morning that we got it wrong when we said 90% of our debt was incurred by the NDC government in 8 years, and that the minority brought the correct figures. So those figures that the minority brought, I was expecting him, since he was quoting from them, to tell us that in their own very objective, honest assessment, what was the percentage? There is no such thing. If there is, you should let us know.
I'll let you know.
Please, I'll go. I need to respond to.
Okay, please.
I need to respond to all that. So that once again is a misleading fact. We told you that you incurred 90% of our debt.
Of Ghana's total.
Exactly.
Since independence.
We have said so.
Okay, let's
90%.
Okay.
If you say that the figures are wrong, tell us in your own words. You were there for 8 years. Tell us whether it was 10% incurred by you or not. He has been unable to do so. His minority failed to do so. So it's a matter of record. I will finish and then
he said he's fishing out for the figures.
He is now fishing out.
I'm not fishing. I have it offered.
Okay, so no, right. Let me proceed. Now, if I come and tell you that, look, the way you are managing the economy is rather reckless, and that with efficient management, you can do better because the resources you have abound, and that you can do it better. I am trying to tell you that the way you are going about things, a lot of people are not seeing the effect of what your so-called developmental agenda. So it is not a matter of the monies for you to come and misquote the MPP leadership and say that, oh, they said there was money, you are not going to borrow.
So they didn't say that?
I have not said that. I am saying that we were hammering home the point that there was reckless handling of the economy. And that if you manage efficiently, you wouldn't have to. For example, I have said this morning that if you are going to borrow and penal charges alone is going to cost you 800 million Ghana cedis. And we tell you that, look, those monies, you are using the taxpayers' money to pay for that penal rate. In other jurisdictions, people would be in jail by now because you had all the money. Right. You've asked me a question respectfully.
You go on.
Yes, thank you. So I am saying that we had every reason to question them on the type of management at the time, because if you are borrowing, you say that you cannot build more hospitals. You're saying that you are building constructing some roads. You don't have money to pay. Yet, from the same pot, you are paying free money to a Chinese who intends to give you money, and because you are unable to meet his conditions, you are losing money. I'm saying that 800 million they paid free to the Chinese. Okay, was as a result of mismanagement. Now back to the issue. I am a member of parliament. I have not seen any loan yet on the floor to the tune of 7 billion. Okay. If he's talking about domestic bonds, Felix would want to mislead us again. We had to refinance these maturing debts. These debts had an interest rate payable on them at 23%. So if he says that in 15 years' time, the 19% is going to cost about 6 billion. Around the same time that if we allowed those debts to remain in our books at the 23%, that is even going to be borne.
Alex, let me draw your mind back.
Right. I'm making a point here.
Okay.
I hope you listen to that.
Yeah,
Felix is saying that the 19%, the 2.2 billion, which cost government of Ghana 19%, is going to, the interest alone is going to be 6 billion.
At the end of 15 years.
At the end of 15 years. I'm telling him that these monies were not new loans. These were funds, loans that they had incurred at 23%. So if it had not been refinanced, pay attention, right? It's an important, I want you to ask him. If we had not refinanced at 19% and it had remained in our books at 23%, it was going to cost Ghana government more
than what would.
So he shouldn't come and sit here and say that we are going to pay a whooping 6 billion to Franklin Templeton. He shouldn't say that.
But that's the man you put.
No. Okay. But so do you agree? No.
I get you. I get you.
So he shouldn't.
That question.
Exactly. So but the 23%. Hold on. You had incurred it at the cost of 23%. We have saved Ghana money.
Okay.
Because there's a savings on this because 19% and 23%. When you had the opportunity, you could only do it at 23%. In any event, for the 8 years, all the
move on
that
to another
issued,
issue.
Well, I'll conclude so that we move on.
I need to.
In any
Yeah.
event, for the 8 years, all the domestic bonds that you issued, there was no single one of them which even came to 20%. All of them were about 20%.
Alex, so
Franklin Templeton had been participating in bond issuance at a higher rate.
Let's drop that. Then, are you able to react to the paper's suggestion that what has been added is about 4.5 billion as to what it was used for?
What was it used for?
With the greatest respect, we have been borrowing. This domestic bond that was issued, for instance, was used to refinance.
Okay. Okay, I'll take that answer. It was now again, Felix raises another issue that the talk is that the debt is shooting up because of deficit financing, inherited arrears, and all that. And he says that these are not new, and that every government has had to deal with things like this.
You see, you are giving out the facts. You recall that during the transition period, there was this issue of some figures that were not part of the mainstream handing over notes. Some debts, some monies that were supposed to be paid to contractors that had not been captured. And when eventually the budget was being prepared, all these things had to be factored. All right? I don't remember exactly the figures, but we know it as a fact that there were issues of figures not being properly captured by the government, the then government. Honorable Ato Forsen came out. I thought he was going to dispute that. All he said was that, these things are normal. Sometimes you may not have all the figures, but indeed, these were not monies that they had put in their pockets. But these were projects that people had been contracted to do, and the payment were supposed to be made. These were just justifications.
Okay.
So I'm saying that the figures that they themselves had put out, were not as accurate as we expected those figures to be. And it's a matter of public record.
Okay. Alex, I'm grateful. Felix, just 2 minutes to react
to
this.
First of all, it is not the first time.
You are going to react.
But he said
you asked me to ask him, for instance, that issue you raised about us paying that amount of money. If we don't pay, we'll have to pay more than what you
have
said.
The Chinese issue, ask the CDB.
First of all, for that CDB thing, I debunked it on many occasions here. He's just repeating an untruth. The second point is that it is not the... please, when you were speaking like that...
Alex, you allow him.
You spoke first.
Alex, allow him.
Let us have a very...
Please allow him.
The $200 million we paid as penalty is untrue. Is that what he said?
Please allow him to go.
Came out with the facts.
Alex, please allow him to go. Felix, please go on.
The point I'm making is that I'm not going to respond to long-standing untruths. They've served their purpose. They don't serve any purpose now. The point is that it is not the first time that we've borrowed money in order to refinance a debt. Indeed, the last Eurobond that we took was for a similar purpose. It didn't cost this country that much. The other point is that if what he is saying is to be believed, our debt will not have gone up. by another 5 to 7 billion Ghana cedis. Indeed, these are figures coming from the Bank of Ghana itself. What it means is that we've added onto our debt. We've not replaced our debt. Yes, but it is debt. It is debt nonetheless. No, but listen to me. Alex, please. So I posed the question. You are the one who sat here and at the beginning of this conversation created the impression that we went to borrow money when we were in government and could not account for it because you don't know what we used it for. I am asking you to tell the people of Ghana what you've used the 7 billion Ghana cedis for. Now you are speaking about treasury bills. It is money that you've borrowed and put into consumption. The same consumption that you condemned under the NDC is what you are doing today. So what it means is that all that you told the people of Ghana were untrue. Again, Alex, your leaders are on record. Both President Akufo-Addo and Vice President Bawumia are on record to have said that we have all the money we need here and that it was not necessary to borrow. They used borrowing as a campaign tool against the NDC. So the people of Ghana don't expect you to come into power and borrow.
Yeah, because you
now it is not true. Now, in just 3 months, you borrowed 7 billion.
I'll wrap up that.
And then the final point about the claims made by Vice President Bawumia about some money that were not captured in the handing over notes. I'm sure you remember that.
Yes, I do.
He came out and claimed that 7 billion Ghana cedis was missing. He said it was missing. He created the impression that there was some money that we took and put in our pockets and did not account for. That was the first statement that he made. Then the minority came out and said what he is talking about cannot be true. In fact, these are not monies that existed that were taken out. It just so happens that when you go to the finance ministry and they are dealing with contractors, when you submit a certificate that has not been there up to 6 months, it is not considered as part of current liabilities. That is the practice that has existed for quite some time at the finance ministry. When they came into power, they did not understand the system. Rather than being humble and learning from their predecessors, they sought to bastardize their predecessors and give them a bad name. So they got certificates that had not been added to current liabilities and said that they were monies that had not been accounted for. But the final point is that they have been exposed for all the untruths they told. They very much believe in borrowing. They have borrowed 7 billion Ghana cedis. Alex is unable to tell us what they used it for because they've used it to pay salaries and finance other recurrent expenditure, which is very normal in governance.
Okay, I'm grateful, gentlemen. Let's move to Alex. I'm not coming to you again. Daily Graphic and the Statesman are but I'm not coming. I've spent 30 minutes on the public debt. Let's move to Galamsey. It's also another big issue we need to deal with. The president is talking about alternative livelihoods for illegal miners. So to that effect, we were told by the Daily Statesman that a committee headed by the Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation has been established to this effect to find alternative livelihood for illegal miners. The committee also implement to the letter government strategy on combating illegal mining menace. So, Alex, let's start from you again. So, finding other means of living for legal miners is the solution to this problem of Galamsey. Is that the solution?
Right. Before I even get there,
I won't let you go back to the
yeah, sure, I'm not going back.
So don't go there.
If you go back, I'll go back and correct it.
No,
it's not an issue.
You two won't go back.
Right.
Oh, he can go back. I'll just correct whatever truth he tells. That's all.
Right. I'm not going back, but I think that there's a platform of fact. It's not a platform of gallery talk. If you raise issues, you come out with facts that Ghana at the
Alex, I said earlier that that is not true. Alex, I don't want to mute your microphone. You don't want to earlier that I'm not going back to the public debt.
I am saying you are paying 6 billion cedis in 15 years. Is that not a fact? No, is that not a fact?
Alex, please, we are not going back to the public debt. Please, we are talking about illegal mining.
Is that not a fact?
Alternative livelihoods. That's the president's solution.
I agree. But it's also a fact that you were going to pay
it is a fact that you are paying Franklin Templeton 6 billion.
And you are going to pay the
we are not going to pay 9 billion. Otherwise, our debt would have reduced.
Your microphones are off.
Otherwise, our debt would have reduced.
Yes.
Okay.
Until you go off the public. My director had put your microphones off. So let's change. We're talking about illegal mining now. The president is suggesting that alternative livelihood, a committee has been set up to find other means of living for these persons.
Since you don't want us to conclude the matter,
no, I don't want us to conclude.
Clearly, is not
on the
yes, no problem.
He's not
right. You and I agree that Galamsey menace has not been helping our economy. water bodies are being destroyed. I had a feel of it in 2015 in Winneba, when no water could flow downstream into the Ayensu, and we had severe water problem in Winneba. Thanks to the then deputy minister, whom I disturbed on the floor of the house, and we had some other alternative measures. We eventually had some water. I'm told that many other areas in the country face the same problem. So for the Galamsey menace to be addressed rather boldly, to me, it's a step in the right direction. In 2003, 2002, when President Kufuor attempted it, the media did not support his government. And it was like, if you drive us out, we're not going to vote for you. So he called in. The past 8 years, we never really saw anything serious, as we're seeing today. But I remember that the government came to Parliament to amend the law.
The mining law.
The mine, yes. Which now introduced this small-scale, medium-scale mining and made it legal. But to me, I see the problem, the Galamsey we talk of today is a form of legal small-scale mining.
Right.
Okay? Most of the people around have their licenses. I concede.
Right.
The problem is with the enforcement of the law, that those regulators, the Minerals Commission, to follow through and see to it that they comply, they do what is expected of them. That is a problem. Because if you don't mine closer to water bodies, they are doing so.
The method are right.
The method, exactly. Okay, so that is a problem. And I also have a problem with the seeming bastardization of other nationals, including Chinese, as if that it is the Chinese who are the problem. But it is us, as Ghanaians. We are the problem. We bring them in. We are bringing them. We go and front for them. So an attitudinal change is key. Patriotism is key. We ourselves should respect our laws as Ghanaians.
From what you're saying, then it means that stopping Galamsey isn't something good, from what you just told me.
Why isn't it good?
Because you think that the problem is with regulating how it is done. So if we can regulate how it is done, then we don't need to stop it.
Oh, in that sense, if we regulate, because we are all crying,
if we
because
can monitor the
of
way
course it's monitoring,
comply.
Make sure that you recover. If after mining in the area for then reforestation strategies, all those things are in the act. What steps are you going to take to ensure that you recover the land? I mean, the regulation is there. It's very comprehensive.
Right.
So to the extent that you are going to comply and do what is right, observe all the environmental laws and ensure that you do the right thing, there would be no problem as to stop mining and all that. No. But if people's cocoa trees are going to be cut down, if people's cocoa farms are going to be ransacked, people are going to be encouraged to sell their cocoa farms at Patrisam and for somebody to use it for Galamsey, then there's a problem. Now, on the issue of alternative livelihood, yes, the concerns has been, I remember somebody telling me that he's a police officer. He told me that, look, he worked in the western region, that area, and when Galamsey really came, I mean, became a very viable business, armed robbery stopped. Or, I mean, reduced, let me put it that way. I said, really? He said, yes. I mean, there are night patrols. They realized that people stopped attacking drivers and all that. And that route, I know it, as a transporter. I remember those days, our drivers would be stopped there, you take their money from them, and then all that. So if Mr. President has found it fit to get a committee to look at it, it's all good for us, because these are the concerns people express, that if we are driven out of our Galamsey business, what else can we do? And then there is going to be an alternative livelihood program to help. Our government is known for such initiatives. That is how come in 2001, when Kufuor came into office, we realized the unemployment situation. We quickly moved in with the youth employment program, and we know all the intervention that came into being. So it is not something new. It will be followed through, and Ghanaians will see the benefit thereof.
All right, Alex, I'm grateful. Felix, so we monitor how they do it and ensure they do the right thing, or we ban outright.
Well, I'll come to that, but let me take off from where Alex landed. I don't know where he derives the confidence from to tell the people of this country that this government can be relied upon to create jobs at a time when they become notorious for depriving people of same. I mean, only last Friday or so, they dismissed 100 workers, ordinary workers of DVLE. The week or so before that, they had dismissed another 50 from Maslock. Ordinary workers. I'm not talking about political appointees.
Right.
Who you can, please let me make my point.
Right, are we dealing with the
Why?
issue?
Is it not true?
Right.
Why? Right. You see, these are things that the people of this country know. He landed by claiming that this government or their party is known for creating jobs. I am disputing that on the basis of what has happened in this country in the last few months that they've been in charge. All they have done is to target people for dismissals. Dismissing police recruits, dismissing staff of national service, dismissing staff of Maslock, staff of DVLA, NHI, and what have you. So I don't think that people can have any measure of confidence in them. But on the issue of Galamsey, you see, I don't like dabbling in pedantic rhetoric, things that we all know to be the case. We cannot come and sit here and repeat them. Everybody knows Galamsey is a terrible development, and it does our environment no good. What we require are the solutions to deal with it. So I am not, quite frankly, I'm not enthused by this whole media campaign. It appears to be full of glitz. It won't yield anything. What will yield results is actual implementation of policy to address it. This government is simply too enamored with PR as opposed to doing actual work on the ground. But you see, they even are starting from a position of a lack of credibility in this fight. Only last week, I'm sure you heard members of the Small Scale Mining Association daring them to come after them and said they should leave them alone or there will be order be die. You remember that statement?
Right.
Yes, there was a gentleman who...
From Kumasi.
Exactly. Why do you think that they said so? Because this government or this party that is currently in government created the impression that they will not touch them. I have heard voice recordings of President Akufo-Addo whilst campaigning, claiming that we in the NDC say when he comes, he will deal with Galamsey and that he was not going to deal with them.
He said he will regularize
No. Listen to what I'm saying. He says that, he said it in tree, that we are going about saying that he says he will end Galamsey and that he will not come after them. Those are his exact words.
Quote the tree.
Yes, I'm quoting the tree. I can say, and it's the phone and I'm saying, Memeba, Mabe Jai Galamsey. Omo Bwa and no create the Biarada. What does it mean? So you see, the point is that you went campaigning, okay, because you needed votes. You closed your eyes to the fact that this has deleterious consequences on the environment and gave them hope that they were going to continue in their trade. So when you come into government and you begin some efforts to deal with it, it is not going to sit well with the people you've promised. They have an expectation of you that once you've come into government, their business will flourish, even though we all know that it has very harmful effects on the environment. That is why I make the point that they have a credibility deficit in terms of this fight. The people you are going to do not have any confidence in you, that the things you say will be done. Again, when you speak about alternative livelihoods, should you not have thought of this before embarking on this activity? Galamsey is illegal. We all know. But the point that we need to stress on is that these are young men and women who, because of the lack of employment opportunities, have gone into this sort of very dangerous practice. If you want to deal with it, you need to address the push factors. What is it that drives them into Galamsey? Because I've seen some of the pictures, and I wonder how any human being who cares for his own life will go into such a practice. It can only be due to economic difficulties.
Is it not because of the lucrative nature of the
well, if it is lucrative, what it means is that they don't have an alternative source of income that is lucrative enough to keep them there.
Even though it's dangerous.
It is such a dangerous activity, so that if any reasonable human being has an alternative livelihood, I don't think that they will go into it. So you put all of that in place before you go on this media razzmatazz and get every media house talking about it without any concrete step on the ground. Bearing in mind that you had gone making promises to them that you knew were not sustainable. And that kind of behavior runs through everything that they've done. On the campaign platform, they said sweet things, juicy things, made tantalizing promises, only to come into government and renege. Look at the struggle they are having with free SHS now. Since they've been in power, they've shifted positions about 3 times. You told everybody there'll be free SHS now, meaning that every Ghanaian child who is due for SHS education will go to school for free. Then if you go and read the budget that they presented, the finance minister says that only first-year students entering SHS in the 2017-2018 academic year will benefit. So what becomes of the second and third cohorts, whose parents you had created the impression to, that they were not going to pay anything for their awards?
Why are you looking at my face?
Look at their other promise.
You are not there, you are looking at my face.
Right. No, you see,
Alex, why are you looking at my face? And when you say we should stick to issues.
Yes, but these issues
and he's driving.
I'm driving what? He's not driving anything.
I'm saying that you lack credibility.
So if you know he's not
I'm looking at you because
he's driving at the point, why do you want to look at him and look at me?
Because I'm coming to you very soon.
Oh, you don't need to look at me.
Alex, the point I'm making is that there's a credibility deficit with the way this government is dealing with the rollout of its policies.
Because of that, they can't fight Galamsey.
But you see, to fight Galamsey, you need the cooperation of those involved in it. It is not just a matter of moving in military personnel to seize their equipment and driving them out. Okay. The people have promised you resistance. And they have been emboldened to take that position because of what you told them when you were campaigning. Okay. So if you admit that you were dishonest and that you were not candid with them, it goes a long way to give you the credibility that you need to deal.
All right, let me get Johnny Hughes to take a look at some of the comments coming in. Johnny.
Okay, so thanks, Bright. Let's check out some of your messages. Good morning, TV3. I'm really enjoying every bit of your program. Please, Mr. President, we'll be very proud of your government if you could put out measures in place to enable us, those of us who have completed colleges of distance education, to be part of the GS posting enrollment. Baba Joseph from Patia. And good morning, Johnny. In fact, we, the people of Boku, are suffering with quality of health care in the sense that all the hospitals are not working with health insurance, because when you go to a facility, you pay everything, or you pay for everything, even common paracetamol at the facility. Please use your media to help us solve the problem. Tanimu sent that one. Is the ban on Galamsey lifted? The Chinese who left initially are back, and Galamsey is going on in Upper Dentra West. A bit of information from you. Good morning, Bright. Ask Alex how much the MPP government has borrowed so far and for what purpose. Good morning, Ghana TV3. Moving forward, thank you. The MPP were always making noises anytime the NDC government borrowed in the erstwhile administration, creating impression that that will be different, that they will be different. But look at how they have tripled their style. Oh, MPP had then Ernest from Esikado. Good morning, my able lawyer, Apanyo King. Your submissions are always well articulated and factually accurate. Keep it up, sir. Ghanaians are proud of you. You're in Wa and Swalahideen. My Felix man, long time. We really missed you. Hope you will be regular on TV3 like you were. This is John Taylor from Kumasi. Felix says he's back from sabbatical leave, so you see more of him. Good morning, TV3. Mr. Alex, you are indeed a lawyer. Your party is not being honest. Michael from Somanya. Welcome back from your long vacation, Felix. I think you have learned your lesson very well, and you have stayed away from propaganda and politics of insults. Felix, can you walk freely now? Well, I don't think, but President Akufo-Addo is now the president. He used to say, well, all of this really. TV3, I hope your panelists are doing well, except to say we must be serious as a country, else we will not get anywhere. The hypocrisy of the NDC has been exposed, and they should better concentrate on their party matters and leave Nana to do his work. They still do not know why they lost in 2016. Nana, continue your good work. Please, Honorable Marking should call me. I am shocked when Felix referred to Nana as president. They will continue to be in shock in 2020 until they learn to respect by Eric in Bogatanga, and Addison's number there. Today, Felix Kwachi has met his meter. Propaganda will let NDC be in opposition for a long time. I'm a citizen, not a spectator. And good morning, Honorable Marking, Afenyo Marking. Please, do you remember that His Excellency Nanado told us that the MPP won't go for any loan, or better still, won't borrow loans? So now, how come our country is indebted, has increased by, well, 5 billion to 7 billion? Interesting comments there, right? And Felix, you have welcome messages for you. So it's good one. Please ask Felix whether those dismissed staff of Maslock Health Insurance, etc., were at post in 2008, and by extension, what means did they acquire those positions? So tell him not to be mischievous. Interesting.
So he's applauding the callous dismissal of these.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I mean that is what it means. So you need to
use some grateful
2008 before you can work at a particular place.
Let's quickly wrap up on this one. The finder talks about the president talking about adding value to raw materials. He says that is what will secure a future for us. Alex, let me once again start with you. I sometimes think that our leaders should. This is not new. We've heard it over and over again, adding value to what we produce. I sometimes think that our leaders should be telling us of what they have done and not to be telling us that this is what we should do. That is what I think. Now, should we do it, or our leaders should be telling us what we should do to ensure that we have a future?
Right, thank you. I think you had, before the text messages were read, you had wanted to give me the opportunity to address some two issues. I think,
all right.
On the issue of free SHS, the MPP government has been very honest with Ghanaians in terms of its implementation. Soon after the elections, even before the swearing in, the NDC went to town that we could not implement free SHS. We are aware now that free SHS was budgeted for. It's going to take off in September. We have not changed positions.
With the first batch of students.
Of course.
Not the second and third.
Of course.
I think that is what is in contention.
Is that what they told? Is that what they told?
Okay, so Alex, is that what?
Is that what you told the electorate?
Is that what the whole issue of was about? The way it was discussed.
How different is it from progressive?
Is that what it was discussed prior to the elections? That it is for first years and not second and third?
Before the elections, we stated clearly in our manifesto.
Free SHS now.
Can I?
That's what you said.
Let's quickly. I am running out of time.
Well,
go ahead.
That's what he intends to do.
Go ahead.
Before the elections, our blueprint document, which is our manifesto, was clear that the government of MPP, which was going to have a 4-year mandate, will implement free SHS.
Okay. Now what does that
mean? The government has been voted for. We are now in office, and we say that we are going to roll it out, and we have.
Okay, I think you've answered that question. Okay, move on.
Government of Ghana, the Nanado government, has not dismissed people from their workplaces.
Only last week Friday you have. Only last week Friday, 100 people from DVLE were dismissed.
But he's reacting.
So who dismissed them? Me?
Felix, please, Alex, please go ahead.
Rather, certain individuals who were irregularly engaged.
How so?
Okay.
How so?
Right. I'm capable of making my point. Don't put words in my mouth.
Because of time.
No, it doesn't matter. If we won't have all the time, then we can always have another time
they were
to discuss.
Not dismissed, but they were irregularly put in.
And no, that's the point you're
making. You should ask him. You should ask him what he means by irregular. What was irregular about the employment? What was irregular about it? What was irregular? I'm asking you. How should somebody be employed? That makes it regular. Spell it out. Spell it out.
Felix, okay, a quick one.
Yeah, I expect that you would have asked him
because we need to add this one.
I want him to clarify that point. In fact, I'll give him time.
Felix, are you ready
spell it out
to clarify?
Clarify. What do you mean by irregular? What is irregular about it?
If not, let's move on.
What makes it irregular?
You know that I'm always capable of making.
Yes, so move on.
So let me answer you.
Please go ahead.
Those who were irregularly engaged.
How irregular?
Some of them did not even go through interview.
Right. That is not
Some
true.
of them, you see?
That is not true.
Let me finish.
Felix, I'll
allow you.
Let me finish.
I'll allow you. Go ahead.
Some did not even have certificate to commensurate with the very job
they're doing, that
they've been given, that you are on this status. So the government of Ghana is rationalizing, streamlining, seeing through it that the right things are done. What are you afraid of? Okay. I know for a fact that most of these recruitments were hurriedly done during the transition period. And there is a new government. We want to do away with ghost names. We want to see to it that people are in the right places, doing the right things. Look, streamline. Is there anything wrong with the government coming out to streamline and ensure that people who are regularly employed have the requisite qualification? just recently realized that Asiedu, somebody who was engaged as a director for communication, in fact, they brought in a fake certificate. And if such a person is being hauled before BNI or Yoko to investigate, how come he got there with a fake certificate? You, as a responsible party, you come out and defend it.
Alex, I think you
think they are your party people.
Alex, I think
is that what you are doing?
It is only fair.
I've answered you.
So, right, it is only fair that I respond to the claim that he's making.
What are you talking about?
It is completely untrue. Look, on Friday,
Alex, allow
when the DVLA, no, but I need to correct it.
No, he said
you responded,
and now you said that it is untrue.
No, because
I'm challenging your claim of irregularity. And so let me explain to you why it is not true. You had your turn.
Alex, please.
You see, right. Felix, yeah. On Friday, or was it Thursday, when the 100 DVLA people were dismissed, the management of DVLA came out to say that they dismissed them because they did not have money to pay them. There was no mention of irregular employment.
Okay.
No. Right.
You know the capacity.
Listen to me.
You irregularly engage somebody.
There's nothing.
You hurriedly
Felix, give them Alex. Will these persons be put before court? Because from what you're saying, they have engaged in some illegality.
It is not true, right? What illegality have they engaged in? Specifically, what have they done?
Didn't have certificates.
Which who?
Some
where? Which individual?
Right.
What organization?
Two of you engage in some
I'm correcting your
agenda.
I'm challenging your claim.
If he put out the question, you want to put to me.
I'm challenging your claim.
But he keeps feeding you.
No.
Then you want to ask
Alex, please.
I am challenging your claim.
That
you can keep quiet for a moment.
I'm not allowed to give me my point. I'm not allowed to.
These persons you said engaged in some kind of illegality. Would they be put before the law?
This is a government.
First of all, show the evidence of the irregularity.
Felix, allow Alex to.
That's the point.
Alex, please go on. I'm asking if these persons will be put before the law.
Right. This is a government that believes in due process of law.
So they will put before the law.
I mean, this is a government that believes in due process of law.
Delta 8. You people go and attack a court and you set them free. You say you believe in due process. I'm making the point.
Because you are not a lawyer.
You don't need the law. When people misbehave, they are punished. You don't need to be a lawyer before.
I have ended the show.
You understand
when people attack a court, you prosecute them. You don't come and tell me you don't
have evidence. Gentlemen, I'm grateful for your time this morning.
You are not creating any jobs. Dismissing people.
Felix Kwachofosu is a former Deputy Information Minister, member of the NDC. Alexander, you see they are shaking hands. They are not enemies.
What is that?
Alexander Afenyo Marken is a member of Parliament for the Efutu constituency. We'll tell you all that came up in the MTN FA Cup matches when we're back from the break with sports. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.